and join Euan Graham. He's Director of the International Security Programme at the Lowy Institute think tank. Good to have you with us, Euan. The common narrative is that it was the dropping of these atomic bombs on Hiroshima and on Nagasaki that ended World War II. But there is some dispute about that, isn't there?
There is. I mean, primarily today is a day for somber reflection. We shouldn't forget that. But I think the debate about whether it shaved a few weeks or months off the edge of World War II is misplaced. The real value of Hiroshima was that it was the first demonstration of what these awful weapons can do to human beings. And I think the debt that we all owe is that for 70 years, apart from Nagasaki, there hasn't been a use of those. One of the major reasons the Cold War stayed cold was because of those nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, it was the people of Hiroshima and Nagasaki who paid the price in that awful demonstration.
Indeed, and they're still dealing with the legacy of that. And as you say, nuclear weapons haven't been used since Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Nevertheless, substantially more countries now have nuclear weapons than 1945. So do you think the world is a safer place or a less safe place?
I think it's a less safe place. One of the things I worry about is that the taboo over the use of nuclear weapons is gradually reducing. It's reducing naturally as the demographic of those survivor generation dies off. But if we're talking about Japan, we shouldn't forget, faces a new nuclear threat. There's North Korea just across the water, which has developed nuclear weapons, has the means to deliver them. And that's a threat that plays on the mind of Japanese decision makers as well as ordinary people in Japan. And it's not just the states. Of course, there's the scenario of rogue actors, terrorists getting their hands on these devices. It doesn't have to be a nuclear bomb. It could even be a simple radiological device. But the effect, I think, will still be very severe.
And Shinzo Abe said during his speech in those anniversary memorials that nuclear countries should speak to non-nuclear countries and the goal should be global disarmament. Do you think a world without nuclear weapons is a possibility?
Well, once Pandora's box has been opened, of course, it's very difficult to put it back inside. That's the dilemma that leaders have struggled with for the last 70 years, that you can't uninvent a technology. The best you can hope to do is to control it. That's become more difficult, as you said earlier, because the more numbers of people you have with nuclear weapons, the equation of deterrence becomes more unstable. It's harder to maintain. Japan feels rightly proud of the fact that, as the only country that has been attacked with nuclear weapons, that it has some moral leadership on this. And I think it should use that for all it's worth. On the other hand, we shouldn't forget that Japan has most of the basic ingredients of what's required to develop a nuclear capability if it's pushed to that point. I think it would take a very severe disruption in the regional security environment for that to happen. But it shows that it's very difficult for one country to permanently sheathe its sword unless we all go at the same time. And that's the dilemma of international relations. It's something that we have to get leaders energized about. The trouble is there are so many crisis spots around the world that nuclear disarmament is merely one area on a very crowded agenda.
Indeed. Euan, thank you very much indeed for that. Pleasure to speak with you. Euan Graham there live for us from Sydney. Now, villagers near Nepal's capital, Kathmandu, have found the remains of 17 people. They went missing when their entire village was buried by a landslide.